As the gentle evening light fades over the sacred shores of Gujarat, where the ancient Gomti River flows peacefully into the vast Arabian Sea, we begin tonight a tranquil journey into one of history's most enchanting mysteries, the submerged city of Dwarka, Lord Krishna's legendary golden kingdom that once sparkled like a jewel on India's western coast before vanishing beneath the waves over 4 millennia ago. Let your mind drift through the calm waters where modern divers now glide silently among coral-encrusted ruins, discovering stone blocks and ancient anchors that whisper stories of a civilization so magnificent that even today, its memory fills pilgrims and archaeologists alike with wonder and reverence. Close your eyes and feel the peaceful rhythm of waves that have kept this sacred secret safe for thousands of years, protecting the remnants of a city that bridges the mystical world of ancient scriptures with the patient discoveries of contemporary underwater archaeology. Picture yourself floating gently beneath the serene surface of the Arabian Sea, where shafts of golden sunlight penetrate the crystal-clear water to illuminate the ghostly outlines of massive stone foundations that once supported palaces described in ancient texts as being constructed entirely of gold, silver, and precious emeralds. The underwater landscape before you unfolds like a dream, revealing carefully carved pillars rising from sandy depths, weathered walls that once protected a bustling maritime capital, and scattered fragments of a civilization whose splendor was said to surpass even the greatest kingdoms of the ancient world. According to the sacred texts of Hindu tradition, particularly the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dwarka was no ordinary city but a divine creation built by Lord Krishna himself. With the assistance of Vishwakarma, the celestial architect whose supernatural skills enabled the construction of a metropolis that stretched across 84 kilometers of coastline where the sacred Gomti River meets the infinite expanse of the Arabian Sea. This magnificent urban center, also known as Suvarna Dwarka or Golden Dwarka, was adorned with 900 splendid palaces whose walls gleamed with gold leaf and whose gardens bloomed with exotic flowers brought from distant realms through the city's extensive trade networks. The legendary origins of Dwarka begin with Krishna's strategic need to protect his beloved Yadava clan from the constant attacks of the demon king Jarasandha, who had made life unbearable in their previous capital of Mathura. Seeking divine intervention, Krishna requested Samudra, the ocean god, to provide land for a new city where his people could live in peace and prosperity. The benevolent deity granted Krishna 12 yojanas of reclaimed land that had previously been known as Kushasthali, which the divine prince transformed into Dwaravati, the city of many gates, creating a heavily fortified island capital that could only be reached by ship, ensuring maximum security for its inhabitants. Watch as this extraordinary city rises from the waves of imagination, its massive defensive walls extending deep into the sea to create protected harbors where merchant vessels from across the ancient world arrived daily carrying silk from China, spices from Southeast Asia, precious metals from Central Asia, and exotic goods from lands as distant as the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. The city's strategic location made it a crucial gateway between the Indian subcontinent and the western trade routes that connected civilizations across vast oceanic distances, while its reputation for justice and prosperity under Krishna's wise governance attracted diplomats, scholars, and traders who marveled at the advanced urban planning and cultural sophistication they encountered. The architecture of legendary Dwarka reflected both divine inspiration and practical engineering mastery, with sophisticated harbor facilities that could accommodate hundreds of vessels simultaneously, advanced drainage and irrigation systems that supported lush gardens throughout the city, and defensive fortifications so impregnable that the city remained unconquered throughout Krishna's 125-year reign. The royal palace complex, described in ancient texts as containing countless chambers decorated with precious stones and surrounded by celestial gardens where mystical birds sang eternal melodies, served as the administrative center for an empire that influenced political and cultural developments throughout the Indian subcontinent. Yet this golden age was destined to end with Krishna's departure from the earthly realm, as the sacred texts describe how the moment the beloved Lord ascended to his eternal abode, the ocean that had granted land for the city's creation returned to reclaim its gift. According to the Mahabharata's poignant account, on the very day that Krishna left his physical form, the vast metropolis of Dwarka was swallowed by the Arabian Sea, marking the beginning of Kali Yuga, the age of darkness and spiritual decline that continues to this day. Mysteriously, Krishna's own palace was spared from the submergence, remaining as an eternal sanctuary beneath the waves, awaiting rediscovery by those pure enough to perceive divine truth. For countless centuries, the story of Dwarka remained preserved only in the verses of ancient scriptures and the oral traditions of faithful devotees who continued to believe that somewhere beneath the rolling waves lay the physical remains of their beloved Lord's earthly kingdom. Skeptics dismissed these accounts as purely mythological, arguing that no city of such magnificence could have existed in ancient times, while believers maintained their conviction that archaeological evidence would eventually vindicate their cherished traditions and prove the historical reality of Krishna's golden capital. The transformation of legend into archaeological possibility began in the 1930s when pioneering researchers like Hiranand Shastri first initiated systematic searches for physical evidence of the submerged city, followed by more extensive excavations in 1963 led by archaeologists J.M. Nanavati and H.D. Sankalia, who began uncovering tantalizing clues that suggested the presence of ancient settlements beneath both land and sea in the Dwarka region. These early investigations revealed pottery fragments, structural remains, and other artifacts that indicated continuous human habitation at this sacred site across multiple historical periods, encouraging more ambitious underwater exploration efforts. The breakthrough came between 1983 and 1990 when renowned marine archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao conducted 12 systematic underwater expeditions that revealed a wealth of archaeological evidence, including massive stone blocks arranged in patterns suggesting deliberate construction, carved pillars that indicated sophisticated architectural techniques, stone anchors of various designs that proved the existence of significant maritime activity, and remnants of what appeared to be fortification walls extending along the ancient riverbank exactly as described in the classical texts. The discoveries made during these groundbreaking expeditions included over 500 artifacts representing a cultural sequence spanning more than 2 millennia, with evidence of multiple construction phases suggesting that Dwarka had been built, destroyed, and rebuilt several times throughout its long history. The variety of anchor types, three-holed, prismatic, and triangular designs, indicated sophisticated naval technology and extensive maritime trade connections, while the presence of irrigation channels and water management systems demonstrated advanced urban planning capabilities that supported a large population in this coastal environment. Recent developments have brought renewed excitement to Dwarka research, as the Archaeological Survey of India launched fresh underwater investigations in 2025. After a 20-year hiatus, deploying advanced sonar technology and systematic diving operations under the leadership of Professor Alok Tripathi. For the first time in ASI history, this expedition includes a significant number of women archaeologists, Dr. Aparajita Sharma, Ms. Poonam Vind, and Rajkumari Barbina, whose participation represents both gender inclusivity and scientific excellence in exploring India's underwater cultural heritage. The 2025 expeditions have already yielded promising results, with systematic surveys conducted near Gomathi Creek revealing preserved structural remains and additional artifacts that continue to support the archaeological significance of the site. The team's careful documentation of submerged features using underwater photography, video recording, and precise mapping techniques ensures that each discovery contributes to a growing body of scientific evidence while respecting the cultural and religious sensitivities associated with this sacred location. The contemporary city of Dwarka, built over successive generations of settlement at this blessed confluence of river and sea, serves as one of Hinduism's foremost sacred pilgrimage sites, attracting millions of devotees annually who come to offer prayers at the magnificent Dwarkadish temple and to contemplate the eternal significance of Krishna's earthly Leela. The temple, constructed between the 13th and 15th centuries, stands as a testament to continuous worship and cultural memory that has preserved the spiritual essence of this holy place across centuries of historical change. The ongoing dialogue between archaeological science and spiritual tradition at Dwarka demonstrates how modern investigative techniques can respectfully explore religious heritage while contributing to broader human understanding of ancient civilizations and cultural development. The careful balance maintained between scientific inquiry and devotional reverence creates opportunities for scholars and believers to collaborate in uncovering truth while honoring the sacred dimensions of their shared discoveries. As we embark on this peaceful journey through the mysteries of submerged Dwarka, we enter a realm where ancient wisdom meets modern discovery, where the patient work of underwater archaeologists reveals glimpses of a civilization that continues to inspire wonder and devotion across the centuries. The gentle waves that lap the shores of modern Dwarka carry whispers of the golden kingdom that sleeps beneath, inviting us to explore not only the physical remains of Krishna's capital but also the timeless spiritual principles that made it a beacon of divine governance and cultural achievement. As the gentle morning mist rises from the sacred waters where the Gomti River embraces the Arabian Sea, we drift tonight into the enchanting realm of Suvarna Dwarka, the golden city of legends, where divine architecture and celestial planning created a metropolis so magnificent that its memory has survived 5,000 years of earthly changes, inspiring countless generations with visions of perfect governance and harmonious urban life. Let your mind float peacefully through the golden corridors of Krishna's legendary capital, where every palace gleamed with precious metals and every garden bloomed with flowers from distant realms, while the gentle sound of temple bells and flowing water created an eternal symphony of spiritual beauty. Close your eyes and feel the serene atmosphere of a city designed by divine wisdom, where earthly needs were met through celestial abundance, and every street reflected the perfect balance between material prosperity and spiritual enlightenment. Picture yourself walking through the moonlit gardens of Suvarna Dwarka as described in the ancient Puranas, where crystalline fountains cascade over terraces carved from single blocks of emerald and sapphire, while golden peacocks dance beneath trees, whose leaves shimmer with silver and whose fruits offer both earthly nourishment and spiritual sustenance. The air carries the gentle fragrance of celestial flowers, Parihata, Mandara, and Santanaka, whose blooms never fade and whose presence transforms the very atmosphere into a medium of divine grace and perpetual peace. According to the sacred texts, particularly the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vishnu Purana, the construction of Dwarka began when Krishna approached Vishwakarma, the divine architect whose skills surpass all earthly craftsmen, requesting the creation of a city that would serve as both fortress and paradise for his beloved Yadava clan. Vishwakarma accepted this sacred commission with joy, understanding that he was being invited to manifest divine perfection in physical form, creating structures that would demonstrate how human civilization could reflect celestial harmony and spiritual principles. The planning of Suvarna Dwarka followed cosmic principles that aligned earthly architecture with divine geometry, incorporating sacred proportions and astronomical orientations that connected the city's layout to the movements of planets and stars. The main thoroughfares radiated from Krishna's central palace like spokes of a cosmic wheel, creating not merely functional transportation routes but spiritual pathways that guided residents and visitors toward deeper understanding of divine truth through the very act of movement within the sacred urban space. Watch as this magnificent metropolis takes shape according to divine vision, beginning with the construction of massive fortification walls that extended 12 yojanas in circumference, incorporating precious metals and gemstones into the defensive structures not merely for ostentation but because these materials possessed protective properties that created energetic barriers against negative influences. The walls rose to heights that seemed to touch the clouds while their foundations extended deep into the earth and sea, ensuring that the city remained stable and secure against both physical threats and supernatural disturbances. The legendary palace complex at Dwarka's heart represented the pinnacle of divine architectural achievement, containing 16,000 separate residences for Krishna's wives, each designed according to the individual personality and preferences of its inhabitant, while maintaining perfect harmony with the overall aesthetic vision. These palaces, constructed entirely of gold and silver with roofs of precious emeralds, featured courtyards filled with wish-fulfilling trees whose branches provided whatever residents desired, whether material comforts, spiritual guidance, or simple moments of peaceful contemplation. The most magnificent of all structures was Krishna's personal dwelling, described as surpassing even the palaces of the heavenly realms in its beauty and splendor. This divine residence featured walls embedded with philosopher's stones that eliminated the need for external lighting by radiating gentle luminescence throughout the chambers, floors paved with crystal that reflected the movements of celestial bodies, and gardens where kalpavriksha trees granted not only material wishes but also spiritual blessings to those who approached them with pure hearts and noble intentions. The urban infrastructure of Suvarna Dwarka demonstrated advanced planning principles that integrated practical functionality with spiritual significance, featuring broad avenues wide enough to accommodate processions of royal elephants while maintaining intimate pedestrian pathways that encouraged quiet contemplation and neighborly interaction. The city's sophisticated water management system included not only channels and reservoirs for practical needs but also sacred bathing tanks and fountains whose waters possessed purifying properties that cleansed both physical impurities and spiritual obstacles. The harbor facilities of legendary Dwarka represented marvels of maritime engineering that facilitated trade relationships with distant lands while maintaining the city's security against potential naval attacks. The protected anchorage could simultaneously accommodate over 1,000 vessels of various sizes, from small fishing boats used by local residents to massive merchant galleys that brought exotic goods from across the ancient world's vast trade networks, creating prosperity that supported not only material abundance but also cultural exchange and intellectual development. The population of Suvarna Dwarka was said to include 900 million residents representing diverse communities united in their devotion to Krishna and commitment to dharmic principles that governed all aspects of civic life. Despite this enormous population, the city maintained perfect organization and harmony through systems of governance that emphasized service over dominance, wisdom over force, and collective welfare over individual gain, creating a social model that demonstrated how large communities could function without conflict or inequality. The cultural life of Dwarka reflected its divine origins through constant celebration of arts, music, and spiritual practices that elevated daily existence beyond mere survival toward conscious participation in cosmic harmony. The city supported thousands of artists, musicians, and scholars whose creative works not only entertained residents but also transmitted profound philosophical teachings and preserved sacred knowledge that benefited generations throughout the Indian subcontinent and beyond. The economic systems that sustained Suvarna Dwarka operated according to principles of abundance rather than scarcity, with the city's wealth derived not from exploitation or conquest but from the natural prosperity that emerges when society functions in harmony with divine law. Trade relationships were based on mutual benefit and cultural exchange rather than dominance and extraction, while internal distribution of resources ensured that all residents enjoyed material security and opportunities for spiritual development regardless of their social position or economic function. The gardens and parks that filled Suvarna Dwarka created an urban environment that seamlessly blended natural beauty with architectural magnificence, featuring landscapes where earthly plants grew alongside celestial varieties whose presence transformed the very atmosphere into a medium of spiritual elevation. These green spaces provided not only aesthetic pleasure and recreational opportunities but also served as outdoor temples where residents could commune with divine presence through direct contact with nature's beauty and abundance. The educational institutions of legendary Dwarka offered learning opportunities that encompassed both practical skills necessary for worldly success and spiritual disciplines that enabled personal transformation and divine realization. The city's schools and academies attracted students from across the ancient world who came to study not only traditional subjects like mathematics, astronomy, and medicine but also advanced yogic practices and philosophical teachings that prepared graduates to serve as enlightened leaders in their home communities. The religious architecture of Suvarna Dwarka included countless temples and shrines dedicated not only to Krishna in his various aspects but also to the full pantheon of divine beings, whose blessings supported different dimensions of cosmic function. These sacred structures served as focal points for community worship and individual devotion while also functioning as centers for charitable activities, educational programs, and cultural events that strengthened social bonds and transmitted spiritual values across generations. The festivals and celebrations that regularly filled Dwarka's streets created opportunities for collective joy and spiritual renewal that demonstrated how earthly pleasure could serve divine purposes when approached with proper consciousness and generous spirit. These gatherings brought together residents from all social levels and shared appreciation for Krishna's presence and divine grace, creating experiences of unity and transcendence that strengthened both individual faith and community cohesion. The governance of Suvarna Dwarka reflected Krishna's divine wisdom in creating administrative systems that served the welfare of all residents while maintaining order and justice without oppression or inequality. The city's laws were based on dharmic principles that recognized both individual rights and collective responsibilities, while judicial procedures emphasized restoration and healing rather than punishment and retribution, creating a social environment where conflicts were resolved through understanding rather than force. As we contemplate these magnificent descriptions of Krishna's golden capital, we witness visions of human civilization elevated to its highest potential through divine guidance and conscious cooperation with spiritual principles. The legends of Suvarna Dwarka continue inspiring contemporary seekers who recognize in these ancient accounts not merely mythological fantasy but blueprints for creating communities that honor both material needs and spiritual aspirations while demonstrating how earthly existence can reflect celestial harmony. The gentle evening breeze that flows across the waters where Dwarka once stood carries continuing invitations to envision human society organized around principles of love, wisdom, and service rather than competition, exploitation, and dominance. The memory of Krishna's golden city reminds us that true prosperity emerges not from accumulating wealth, but from creating environments where all beings can flourish according to their highest potential while contributing to collective welfare and spiritual evolution. As the gentle evening stars begin their eternal watch over the sacred confluence where the Gomti River meets the Arabian Sea, we journey tonight into the most poignant chapter of Dwarka's story, the mysterious day when the golden city that had stood for over a century as Krishna's earthly capital vanished beneath the waves, fulfilling ancient prophecies while leaving behind archaeological puzzles that continue to intrigue researchers 5 millennia later. Let your mind drift peacefully through the calm waters that now cover the streets where divine footsteps once walked, where the patient sea has preserved sacred secrets in its depths while waiting for the right moment to reveal them to those who approach with reverence and scientific curiosity. Close your eyes and feel the eternal rhythm of waves that have guarded this holy mystery across countless generations, protecting the remnants of a civilization that bridged the earthly and divine realms. Picture yourself standing on the golden ramparts of Suvarna Dwarka in those final hours before the great submergence, watching the morning sun cast its last rays across marble palaces and emerald gardens while the gentle sound of temple bells mingles with the distant calls of seabirds circling above harbors filled with merchant vessels from distant lands. The city pulses with its usual rhythm of prosperity and spiritual devotion, its citizens unaware that they are witnesses to the end of an age and the beginning of a cosmic transition that will transform their magnificent metropolis into legend. according to the sacred accounts preserved in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavata Purana. The submergence of Dwarka was not a random natural disaster but a divinely orchestrated event intimately connected to Krishna's departure from his earthly incarnation. The ancient texts describe how, on the very day that the beloved Lord ascended to his eternal abode, the ocean that had originally granted land for the city's construction returned to reclaim its gift, fulfilling the cosmic cycle that connects earthly kingdoms to divine will and universal order. The Harivamsa Purana provides additional details about this momentous transition, explaining that as Krishna prepared to leave his physical form, he gathered his closest companions and revealed that Dwarka's time as an earthly kingdom was ending, but its spiritual significance would endure forever through the memory of those who understood the deeper meaning of divine play in material creation. The submergence was thus not destruction but transformation, a translation from the visible to the invisible realm where true devotees could continue to perceive the eternal presence of Krishna's kingdom. Watch as the cosmic transition begins with subtle signs that only the spiritually awakened recognize: the gradual shifting of tidal patterns, the unusual behavior of sea creatures, and the mysterious luminescence that appears in the waters surrounding the city as if the ocean itself were preparing to embrace something sacred. The residents of Dwarka, guided by Krishna's final instructions, understand that they are witnessing not catastrophe but cosmic completion, the fulfillment of a divine plan that had been set in motion the moment their beloved Lord first established his capital on the western shores of Bharatavarsha. The ancient accounts describe the submergence as remarkably peaceful rather than violent, with the Arabian Sea rising gradually to envelope the city's magnificent structures while somehow preserving the essential spiritual energy that had made Dwarka a beacon of dharmic civilization. According to tradition, Krishna's personal palace was mysteriously spared from complete submergence, remaining as an eternal sanctuary beneath the waves where devoted souls could still experience the presence of divine love and wisdom despite the physical changes that marked the beginning of Kali Yuga. Yet this spiritual understanding of Dwarka's fate did not prevent later generations from seeking physical evidence of the legendary city, leading to centuries of speculation about whether tangible remains might still exist beneath the waters off the Gujarat coast. The transformation of sacred history into archaeological quest began in earnest during the 1930s when pioneering researcher Hiranand Shastri initiated systematic searches for material traces of the submerged kingdom. The first significant breakthrough came in the 1960s with excavations led by archaeologists J.M. Nanavati and H.D. Sankalia, who uncovered pottery fragments and structural remains that indicated continuous human habitation at the Dwarka site across multiple historical periods. These discoveries provided the first scientific evidence that the area had indeed supported substantial settlements, encouraging more ambitious underwater exploration efforts that would revolutionize understanding of ancient Indian maritime civilization. The truly groundbreaking discoveries emerged between 1983 and 1990 when renowned marine archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao conducted 12 systematic underwater expeditions that revealed a wealth of archaeological evidence beneath the Arabian Sea. His team discovered massive stone blocks arranged in deliberate patterns, carved pillars indicating sophisticated architectural techniques, and stone anchors of various designs, triangular, prismatic, and three-holed varieties, that prove the existence of significant maritime activity exactly as described in the classical texts. The underwater investigations revealed not just scattered artifacts but the remains of what appeared to be a fortified foundation extending along the ancient riverbank, with stone construction techniques and urban planning features that aligned remarkably with the descriptions found in sacred literature. The discovery of irrigation channels and water management systems demonstrated the advanced engineering capabilities that would have been necessary to support the large population that ancient sources attributed to Krishna's capital. Perhaps most significantly, the archaeological evidence revealed multiple construction phases, suggesting that Dwarka had been built, destroyed, and rebuilt several times throughout its long history, a pattern that resonates with the cyclical understanding of time that characterizes Hindu cosmology and the concept of recurring cosmic ages. The variety of artifacts recovered, spanning over 2 millennia of cultural development, indicated that the site had remained important long after the legendary submergence, continuing to attract settlement and religious activity across successive historical periods. The renewed excitement surrounding Dwarka research reached new heights in 2025 when the Archaeological Survey of India launched fresh underwater investigations after a 20-year hiatus. Under the leadership of Professor Alok Tripathi, this ambitious project represents a new chapter in the scientific exploration of India's underwater cultural heritage, employing advanced sonar technology and systematic diving operations to map previously unexplored areas of the submerged city. For the first time in ASI history, these expeditions include a significant number of women archaeologists, Dr. Aprajita Sharma, Ms. Poonam Vind, and Rajkumari Barbina, whose participation represents both gender inclusivity and scientific excellence in exploring the mysteries that lie beneath the Arabian Sea. Their careful documentation using underwater photography, video recording, and precise mapping techniques ensures that each discovery contributes to the growing body of evidence while respecting the cultural and religious sensitivities associated with this sacred site. The 2025 expeditions have already yielded promising results near Gomathi Creek, revealing preserved structural remains and additional artifacts that continue to support the archaeological significance of the site. The team's systematic surveys have documented submerged features that appear to represent harbor installations, defensive walls, and residential areas that collectively suggest a complex urban center capable of supporting the large population described in ancient texts. The ongoing dialogue between archaeological science and spiritual tradition at Dwarka demonstrates how modern investigative techniques can respectfully explore religious heritage while contributing to broader human understanding of ancient civilizations. The careful balance maintained between scientific inquiry and devotional reverence creates opportunities for scholars and believers to collaborate in uncovering truth while honoring the sacred dimensions of their shared discoveries. The contemporary city of Dwarka, built over successive generations of settlement at this blessed confluence, continues to serve as one of Hinduism's foremost sacred pilgrimage sites, attracting millions of devotees who come to offer prayers while contemplating the eternal significance of Krishna's earthly presence. The magnificent Dwarkadish temple, constructed between the 13th and 15th centuries, stands as testament to continuous worship and cultural memory that has preserved the spiritual essence of this holy place across centuries of historical change. As we contemplate the great submergence that transformed Krishna's golden capital from earthly reality into underwater mystery, we witness the profound interplay between cosmic time and human memory, between divine will and natural process, that continues to inspire both scientific investigation and spiritual reflection. The gentle waves that now cover the streets where Krishna once walked carry whispers of eternal truth about the relationship between temporal existence and timeless reality. The archaeological discoveries emerging from Dwarka's depths remind us that the most sacred stories often contain kernels of historical truth, while the spiritual significance of these ancient accounts transcends any purely material understanding of their meaning. The submerged city serves as both physical artifact and spiritual symbol, inviting us to explore not only the remains of Krishna's earthly kingdom but also the timeless principles of divine governance that his rule exemplified. As the gentle morning sun casts its first golden rays across the peaceful waters near Dwarka, we step tonight into the fascinating world of early 20th century archaeological discovery, where patient scholars armed with simple tools and boundless curiosity began the delicate work of separating myth from history in their quest to understand the truth behind Krishna's legendary capital. Let your mind drift through the quiet coastal landscape of Gujarat in the 1930s, where the salt-tinged breeze carries whispers of ancient secrets while dedicated researchers carefully brush sand from pottery fragments that have waited millennia to tell their stories. Close your eyes and feel the excitement of those first moments when speculation began to transform into scientific investigation, as the modern world prepared to meet the remnants of a civilization that had captured human imagination for countless generations. Picture yourself walking beside pioneering archaeologist Hiranand Shastri as he conducts the first systematic excavations in the area around Dwarka during the 1930s, his weathered hands carefully uncovering ceramic fragments and stone artifacts while his patient eyes search for patterns that might reveal the scope and nature of ancient human activity in this sacred region. The island of Dwarka, located approximately 30 kilometers north of the modern city of Dwarka in Gujarat's Jamnagar district, provided an ideal starting point for archaeological investigation because its relative isolation had protected potential archaeological deposits from the construction and development that might have disturbed evidence on the mainland. The early discoveries that emerged from these pioneering excavations included pottery sherds whose distinctive styles and manufacturing techniques suggested continuous human habitation spanning several millennia, with some fragments displaying characteristics that archaeologists could tentatively date to periods extending back toward the second millennium BCE. These tantalizing clues hinted at the possibility that the Dwarka region had indeed supported substantial settlements during the periods when ancient texts described Krishna's golden capital, though the limited scope of 1930s excavation technology meant that definitive conclusions about the city's full extent and magnificence remained frustratingly elusive. Watch as the archaeological investigation enters a new phase during the 1960s, when more extensive excavations led by prominent researchers J.M. Nanavati and H.D. Sankalia brought systematic methodology and expanded resources to the quest for understanding Dwarka's ancient past. These respected archaeologists, working under the auspices of institutions like Pune's Deccan College, applied rigorous scientific principles to their exploration while remaining sensitive to the deep religious significance that the site held for millions of Hindu devotees who continued to visit the area as pilgrims seeking connection with Krishna's earthly presence. The 1963 excavations marked a particularly significant milestone in Dwarka research, as Nanavati and Sankalia's careful investigations began to reveal the true complexity of human settlement patterns in the region, uncovering evidence of multiple occupation layers that suggested the area had been built, abandoned, and rebuilt numerous times across the centuries. Their systematic approach to documentation and analysis established new standards for archaeological work at religious sites, demonstrating how scientific inquiry could proceed respectfully alongside living spiritual traditions without compromising either scholarly rigor or devotional reverence. The artifacts recovered during these early investigations painted an increasingly detailed picture of ancient life in the Dwarka region, with pottery styles revealing influences from various periods and cultures while maintaining distinctive local characteristics that suggested a unique regional identity had developed around the strategic coastal location. The discovery of cooking vessels, storage jars, and decorative ceramics indicated not merely temporary occupation but sustained urban life that would have required sophisticated organization and resource management to maintain across generations. Yet perhaps the most intriguing discoveries from this early period were the hints of maritime activity that began to emerge from careful analysis of the archaeological record, including evidence of harbor facilities and the presence of artifacts suggesting extensive trade connections with distant regions. These findings aligned remarkably with ancient textual descriptions of Dwarka as a major port city that facilitated commercial and cultural exchange between the Indian subcontinent and trading partners across the Arabian Sea and beyond. The challenges faced by these early archaeological pioneers included not only the technical difficulties of excavating in coastal environments where salt air and shifting sands complicated preservation and documentation, but also the delicate balance required when investigating sites that held profound spiritual significance for contemporary communities. The researchers demonstrated remarkable sensitivity in conducting their work in ways that honored both scientific methodology and religious sentiment, establishing precedents for respectful archaeological practice that would influence subsequent generations of scholars. The gradual accumulation of evidence during the 1930s and 1960s began to suggest that rather than being purely mythological, the stories of ancient Dwarka preserved in sacred texts might contain kernels of historical truth about a genuine urban center that had flourished in this region during ancient times. The pottery fragments, structural remains, and other artifacts provided tangible confirmation that substantial human communities had indeed inhabited the area during periods when traditional chronologies placed Krishna's earthly activities. The scientific context that emerged from these early investigations revealed a complex environmental history characterized by significant changes in sea levels and coastal configurations that could explain how a once thriving land-based city might have become submerged beneath the waters of the Arabian Sea. Geological studies conducted in conjunction with archaeological work suggested that the region had experienced multiple cycles of land emergence and submergence related to tectonic activity, climatic variations, and oceanic fluctuations that occurred across millennia of natural change. The interdisciplinary approach that characterized the best early research at Dwarka demonstrated how archaeological investigation could be enhanced by incorporating insights from geology, oceanography, and environmental science while drawing upon the rich documentary evidence preserved in ancient texts and oral traditions. This holistic methodology enabled researchers to develop more comprehensive understanding of how human communities had adapted to changing environmental conditions while maintaining cultural continuity across generations of challenge and opportunity. The establishment of proper archaeological protocols during this formative period ensured that subsequent investigations would build upon solid foundations of careful documentation and systematic analysis rather than relying on casual artifact collection or speculative interpretation. The meticulous records maintained by researchers like Nanavati and Sankalia provided essential baseline data that would prove invaluable when later technological advances enabled more sophisticated forms of investigation and analysis. The international attention that began to focus on Dwarka during the 1960s reflected growing recognition that the site possessed significance extending far beyond regional or national boundaries to encompass fundamental questions about the relationship between mythology and history, the development of ancient maritime civilizations, and the processes through which religious traditions preserve memories of historical events across vast expanses of time. The careful balance between accessibility and protection that characterized early archaeological management at Dwarka established important precedents for heritage preservation at sites where ongoing religious activity intersected with scientific research interests. The success of this collaborative approach demonstrated that scholarly investigation and devotional practice could coexist beneficially when conducted with mutual respect and shared commitment to understanding and preserving cultural heritage. As the archaeological community prepared to enter the revolutionary era of underwater exploration that would characterize the 1980s and beyond, the foundation laid during the 1930s and 1960s provided essential context and methodology that would enable researchers to interpret their spectacular discoveries beneath the Arabian Sea with appropriate scientific rigor and cultural sensitivity. The transition from land-based to marine archaeology that lay ahead would require new technologies and specialized expertise, but the patient groundwork conducted by these early pioneers ensured that underwater discoveries would be understood within broader frameworks of historical and cultural context rather than as isolated phenomena divorced from their connections to living religious traditions and ancient documentary sources. As we contemplate the remarkable achievements of these early archaeological investigators, we witnessed the first tentative steps in a scientific journey that would ultimately bridge the gap between ancient legend and modern understanding while demonstrating that some of humanity's most cherished stories contain deeper truths that reward careful investigation conducted with appropriate reverence and scholarly discipline. The gentle evening breeze that carries the salt scent of the Arabian Sea continues to whisper secrets of the ancient past while reminding us that the most profound discoveries often emerge from patient work conducted by dedicated individuals who understand that true knowledge requires both rigorous methodology and humble respect for the mysteries that surround us, waiting to be revealed to those who approach with open minds and caring hearts. As the gentle evening light dances across the tranquil surface of the Arabian Sea near Dwarka, we journey tonight into the revolutionary moment when archaeological investigation took its first tentative steps beneath the waves, transforming from careful terrestrial excavation into pioneering underwater exploration that would forever change our understanding of ancient Indian maritime civilization. Let your mind drift peacefully through the crystal-clear waters where brave researchers first descended into the blue depths, their diving equipment and underwater cameras capturing glimpses of stone structures that had waited patiently for millennia to tell their stories to the modern world. Close your eyes and feel the serene weightlessness of floating above ancient ruins, where shafts of golden sunlight penetrate the sea to illuminate carved blocks and weathered pillars that whisper of Krishna's legendary capital, while marine archaeologists move like gentle guardians through this underwater museum of sacred history. Picture yourself standing on the deck of a research vessel in the early 1980s, watching as teams of skilled divers prepare their equipment for the first systematic underwater archaeological survey of the Dwarka region, their faces reflecting both scientific excitement and reverential awe at the prospect of exploring depths that had guarded their secrets since the dawn of recorded history. The morning air carries the salt scent of the sea while gentle waves lap against the boat's hull, creating a rhythmic soundtrack for what would prove to be one of India's most significant archaeological undertakings. The transformation from terrestrial to marine archaeology represented more than simply a change in excavation techniques. It required entirely new approaches to documentation, preservation, and analysis that had never before been attempted in Indian waters. The challenges of working beneath the sea included not only the physical demands of diving and underwater navigation but also the complex logistics of transporting equipment, maintaining communication between surface and underwater teams, and developing methods for precise measurement and photographic documentation in an environment where conventional archaeological tools and techniques often proved inadequate. Watch as Dr. Sundaraj Rao emerges as the pioneering leader who would guide India's first major underwater archaeological expedition, bringing together expertise in marine archaeology, diving technology, and ancient Indian history to create an interdisciplinary team capable of addressing the unique challenges posed by Dwarka's submerged mysteries. Dr. Rao's vision encompassed not merely the recovery of artifacts but the systematic documentation of underwater structures that might provide definitive evidence about the historical reality behind Krishna's legendary capital. The preparation phase for these groundbreaking expeditions required months of careful planning that addressed everything from diving safety protocols to equipment specifications, photographic documentation standards, and artifact conservation procedures designed specifically for materials recovered from marine environments. The team assembled specialized underwater cameras, measuring devices, and sampling equipment while developing communication systems that would enable precise coordination between surface support crews and underwater investigators working in the challenging environment of the Arabian Sea. The first descent into the waters off Dwarka marked a historic moment in Indian archaeology, as researchers equipped with diving gear and underwater documentation equipment began the systematic exploration of areas where local fishermen and pearl divers had occasionally reported encountering strange stone structures and carved artifacts during their daily activities. These initial underwater surveys revealed tantalizing glimpses of what appeared to be deliberately constructed features resting on the seabed at depths ranging from shallow coastal waters to more substantial depths further offshore. The early underwater discoveries included massive stone blocks that appeared to have been quarried and shaped by human hands, their surfaces showing tool marks and finishing techniques that indicated sophisticated masonry skills. These blocks were arranged in patterns that suggested they had once formed parts of larger structures, walls, foundations, or defensive installations, that had been constructed according to planned designs rather than simply scattered by natural forces. The presence of such carefully worked stones and organized configurations provided the first concrete evidence that substantial human construction had indeed occurred in areas now covered by the Arabian Sea. Perhaps even more intriguing were the discoveries of stone anchors in various distinctive designs, triangular, prismatic, and the characteristic three-hole types, that indicated sophisticated maritime activity had been conducted from harbors or anchorages in the now submerged areas. The variety and number of these anchors suggested not occasional use but regular, extensive maritime commerce that would have required substantial port facilities and supporting infrastructure to manage the traffic of merchant vessels from distant lands. The underwater investigations also revealed evidence of what appeared to be harbor installations, including stone structures that could have served as jetties, breakwaters, or docking facilities designed to protect vessels from the sometimes rough conditions of the Arabian Sea while enabling efficient loading and unloading of cargo. These features, combined with the discovery of ballast stones and other maritime artifacts, painted an increasingly detailed picture of a major port city that had facilitated extensive trade relationships across the Indian Ocean. The systematic documentation procedures developed during these pioneering expeditions established new standards for underwater archaeological work in Indian waters, with careful photographic records, precise measurements, and detailed mapping that created permanent archives of discoveries that could be studied and analyzed long after the expeditions concluded. The underwater photography, in particular, provided visual evidence that could be shared with scholars worldwide while offering the general public unprecedented glimpses into India's submerged archaeological heritage. The challenges of working in marine environments required innovative solutions to problems that land-based archaeologists had never encountered, including the effects of water currents on precision measurement, the difficulty of maintaining stable positions for detailed documentation, and the need to protect both equipment and personnel from the unpredictable conditions that could develop in offshore waters. The successful development of effective underwater archaeological techniques at Dwarka established protocols that would influence marine archaeology projects throughout the Indian Ocean region. The interdisciplinary nature of these underwater expeditions brought together expertise from multiple fields, including marine archaeology, underwater photography, geological survey, oceanographic research, and traditional archaeological analysis, creating collaborative approaches that enriched understanding through multiple perspectives and methodological approaches. The integration of scientific diving techniques with archaeological methodology demonstrated how technological advancement could serve historical investigation while maintaining the careful standards of documentation and analysis that characterize professional archaeological practice. The international attention that began to focus on Dwarka's underwater investigations reflected growing recognition that the discoveries emerging from the Arabian Sea possessed significance extending far beyond regional archaeological interest to encompass fundamental questions about ancient maritime civilizations, the historical foundations of religious traditions, and the processes through which coastal settlements had adapted to changing environmental conditions across millennia. The careful balance maintained between scientific investigation and religious sensitivity demonstrated how archaeological research could proceed respectfully at sites that held profound spiritual significance for contemporary communities. The researchers worked closely with local religious authorities and community leaders to ensure that their underwater activities honored both scientific methodology and devotional reverence, creating models for heritage research that served both scholarly and spiritual communities. The gradual accumulation of underwater evidence began to suggest that the waters off Dwarka concealed not simply scattered artifacts but the remains of substantial urban installations that had once supported large populations engaged in sophisticated maritime commerce. The scale and organization of the discoveries indicated planning and construction capabilities that aligned remarkably with ancient textual descriptions of Krishna's capital as a major port city that facilitated trade relationships across vast oceanic distances. The technological innovations required for effective underwater documentation at Dwarka included not only diving equipment and underwater cameras but also specialized tools for precise measurement, sample collection, and artifact recovery that could function effectively in the challenging marine environment. The successful development of these techniques established technological foundations that would enable even more sophisticated underwater investigations in future expeditions. The conservation challenges posed by artifacts recovered from marine environments required the development of new preservation techniques specifically designed for materials that had been submerged in salt water for centuries or millennia. The successful treatment of these materials established procedures that would prove invaluable for preserving underwater discoveries made at archaeological sites throughout the coastal regions of the Indian subcontinent. As the first phase of underwater archaeological investigation at Dwarka drew toward completion, the accumulated evidence suggested that the seafloor off Gujarat's coast concealed archaeological treasures of unprecedented significance for understanding ancient Indian civilization. The success of these pioneering expeditions established foundations for future underwater research that would reveal even more spectacular discoveries about Krishna's legendary capital and its remarkable maritime heritage. As the gentle morning light filters through the crystal-clear waters of the Arabian Sea, we descend tonight into the most extraordinary chapter of Dwarka's underwater archaeology, the systematic recovery of tangible treasures that had waited patiently for millennia on the ocean floor, offering silent testimony to the maritime splendor of Krishna's legendary capital. Let your mind drift peacefully through the blue depths where marine archaeologists move like careful guardians among stone walls, ancient anchors, and mysterious seals that speak across the centuries of sophisticated urban planning, extensive trade networks, and cultural achievements that rivaled any civilization of the ancient world. Close your eyes and feel the serene weightlessness of floating above these recovered treasures, where each artifact tells part of a larger story about human ingenuity, spiritual devotion, and the eternal relationship between legend and archaeological truth. Picture yourself suspended in the gentle currents 30 feet beneath the Arabian Sea surface, watching as Dr. S.R. Rao and his dedicated team of underwater archaeologists carefully document their most spectacular discoveries: massive stone blocks arranged in deliberate patterns that reveal the foundations of what can only be described as monumental architecture designed by master builders who understood both engineering principles and aesthetic beauty. The morning sunlight penetrates the water in dancing shafts that illuminate these ancient constructions, creating an underwater cathedral where science and spirituality converge in moments of profound discovery. The most remarkable of all discoveries were the fortification walls that emerged from careful excavation of the seafloor sediments, revealing stone construction techniques and urban planning features that aligned astonishingly with descriptions found in ancient Sanskrit texts. These walls, built from carefully quarried and fitted stone blocks, extended along what had once been the ancient riverbank, creating defensive installations that could have protected a major port city from both maritime attacks and the unpredictable forces of monsoon flooding that characterized this coastal region. Watch as the underwater team meticulously measures and photographs sections of wall that rise from the seabed in configurations suggesting sophisticated military engineering, with foundations that extend deep into the underlying sediment and construction methods that demonstrate remarkable understanding of hydraulic principles necessary for building in locations subject to tidal action and seasonal water level variations. The precision of the stonework, with blocks fitted together without mortar yet maintaining structural integrity across millennia of submersion, speaks to craftsmanship skills that would challenge even contemporary builders. The variety and abundance of stone anchors recovered from the site provided perhaps the most compelling evidence of Dwarka's significance as a major maritime center, with over 140 anchors discovered in various distinctive designs that indicated different types of vessels and maritime activities. The triangular anchors, carved from single blocks of stone with carefully calculated weight distributions, showed signs of extensive use that suggested they had served merchant vessels engaged in regular commercial voyages rather than occasional fishing expeditions or local coastal traffic. The prismatic anchors, with their sophisticated three-dimensional geometries, demonstrated advanced understanding of hydrodynamic principles that enabled these devices to maintain stable positions in the sometimes turbulent waters of the Arabian Sea. The mathematical precision evident in their design suggested that Dwarka's maritime engineers possessed theoretical knowledge of underwater mechanics that they applied practically to create anchoring systems capable of securing large vessels carrying valuable cargo from distant lands. Perhaps most intriguing of all were the distinctive three-holed anchors whose unique design had never been encountered in other archaeological contexts, suggesting that Dwarka's naval architects had developed innovative solutions to anchoring challenges specific to their particular coastal environment and maritime requirements. The discovery of these anchors in organized clusters near what appeared to be harbor installations indicated systematic harbor management that could accommodate multiple vessels simultaneously while maintaining order and security. The recovery of ancient seals and sealings provided tantalizing glimpses into the administrative and commercial systems that had governed Dwarka's extensive trade relationships, with inscriptions and symbols that suggested sophisticated record-keeping procedures and quality control measures applied to goods entering and leaving the port. These small but significant artifacts demonstrated that Dwarka had functioned not merely as a religious center but as a major commercial hub whose activities required careful documentation and governmental oversight. The seals displayed artistic motifs and script forms that connected Dwarka to broader networks of ancient Indian cultural development while maintaining distinctive local characteristics that suggested a unique regional identity had evolved around this strategic coastal location. The presence of both local and apparently foreign seal designs indicated that Dwarka's merchants had maintained relationships with trading partners from various cultural backgrounds, creating cosmopolitan commercial environments where different traditions and practices intersected. The systematic documentation of pottery fragments recovered from the underwater excavations revealed cultural sequences spanning over 2 millennia, with ceramic styles that demonstrated both continuity and change as successive generations of inhabitants adapted their material culture to changing circumstances while maintaining essential connections to their spiritual and cultural heritage. The pottery included storage jars large enough to hold substantial quantities of grain, oil, or other commodities, suggesting that Dwarka had served as a major redistribution center for agricultural and manufactured goods. The discovery of copper and bronze artifacts, including tools, ornaments, and ritual objects, provided evidence of sophisticated metallurgical technologies that enabled Dwarka's craftsmen to produce both utilitarian implements and decorative items that demonstrated high levels of artistic achievement and technical competence. These metal artifacts had survived their long submersion remarkably well, thanks to the protective qualities of marine sediments that had gradually covered and preserved them from corrosive environmental factors. The underwater investigations also revealed evidence of sophisticated water management systems, including channels and conduits that appeared to have been designed to control freshwater flow and prevent saltwater intrusion into areas where pure water was essential for drinking, cooking, and ritual purposes. These hydraulic engineering features demonstrated understanding of coastal hydrology that enabled the city's inhabitants to maintain water quality despite their proximity to the sea. The recovery of weights and measures provided fascinating insights into the commercial standards that had governed trade activities at ancient Dwarka, with standardized units that indicated participation in broader networks of economic exchange that extended across the Indian Ocean and beyond. The mathematical precision evident in these measuring devices suggested that Dwarka's merchants had operated according to rigorous standards that ensured fair dealing and consistent quality in their commercial relationships. The architectural elements recovered from the site included carved pillars and decorative stones that demonstrated sophisticated aesthetic sensibilities combined with structural engineering capabilities that enabled the construction of buildings capable of withstanding both seismic activity and the corrosive effects of the coastal environment. The artistic motifs carved into these architectural features included both religious symbols and secular decorative patterns that reflected the cultural diversity and artistic sophistication that had characterized ancient Dwarka. The systematic analysis of organic materials recovered from underwater deposits, including preserved wood fragments and plant remains, provided valuable environmental information about the climate and ecological conditions that had prevailed in the Dwarka region during different historical periods. These botanical samples indicated that the area had supported lush vegetation and favorable agricultural conditions that could sustain large populations while providing surplus production for trade with other regions. The discovery of gaming pieces and recreational objects suggested that Dwarka's inhabitants had enjoyed leisure activities and cultural pursuits that reflected both material prosperity and sophisticated social development. These artifacts included elaborately carved game boards and playing pieces that demonstrated artistic skills and cultural traditions related to entertainment and social interaction among the city's residents. The underwater excavations also revealed evidence of religious and ritual activities, including ceremonial objects and architectural features that appeared to be associated with temple complexes or other sacred installations. These discoveries provided material confirmation of Dwarka's significance as a religious center while demonstrating how spiritual and commercial activities had been integrated within the city's overall urban planning and social organization. The international significance of Dwarka's underwater treasures became increasingly apparent as scholars recognized that these discoveries provided unprecedented insights into ancient Indian maritime civilization and its connections to broader networks of cultural and commercial exchange that had linked the Indian subcontinent to trading partners throughout the Indian Ocean and beyond. The artifacts demonstrated technological capabilities and cultural achievements that challenged previous assumptions about the sophistication of ancient Indian coastal settlements. The conservation challenges posed by these underwater treasures required the development of specialized preservation techniques designed specifically for materials that had been submerged in salt water for centuries or millennia. The successful treatment of these artifacts established procedures that proved invaluable for preserving underwater discoveries made at archaeological sites throughout the coastal regions of the Indian subcontinent and other maritime archaeological contexts. As we contemplate these extraordinary treasures recovered from the depths of the Arabian Sea, we witness the transformation of legend into tangible reality, where ancient stories find validation through careful scientific investigation while revealing new dimensions of human achievement that inspire both scholarly admiration and spiritual reverence. The walls, anchors, and seals of submerged Dwarka continue speaking across the millennia, inviting us to appreciate both the material accomplishments of our ancestors and the eternal principles of truth and beauty that guided their remarkable achievements. As the gentle evening stars reflect upon the tranquil waters of the Arabian Sea near Gujarat's sacred coastline, we journey tonight into one of archaeology's most fascinating revelations: the discovery that beneath the waves lies not just one ancient city, but multiple settlements layered like pages in a cosmic book, each representing different epochs of human civilization that rose, flourished, and transformed across the vast expanse of time. Let your mind drift peacefully through these underwater archaeological layers, where patient researchers have uncovered evidence of 7 distinct periods of urban development, each telling part of the larger story of humanity's eternal relationship with this blessed confluence of river and sea. Close your eyes and feel the profound presence of these layered civilizations, where each stratum of ancient stones and pottery fragments whispers secrets of communities that adapted, rebuilt, and renewed their connection to this sacred landscape across millennia of change and continuity. Picture yourself floating gently above the seabed 40 feet beneath the Arabian Sea surface, where systematic excavations conducted by marine archaeologists have revealed the remarkable truth that Dwarka's history unfolds not as a single golden moment but as 7 distinct chapters of human settlement, each separated by layers of marine sediment that mark periods of abandonment, submergence, and renewal. The morning sunlight penetrates the crystal-clear water to illuminate these archaeological deposits, creating an underwater library where each layer represents a different volume in the ongoing story of civilization at this blessed site. The concept of 7 lost cities emerged gradually as underwater investigations revealed the complex stratigraphy of human occupation that extends far deeper into both time and sediment than early researchers had imagined possible. The pioneering work of Dr. S.R. Rao and subsequent expeditions, including the groundbreaking 2025 ASI missions led by Professor Alok Tripathi, have documented clear evidence of multiple construction phases separated by periods of flooding, earthquake damage, or deliberate abandonment that created distinct archaeological horizons beneath the modern seafloor. Watch as this remarkable archaeological puzzle begins to take shape through decades of careful underwater excavation, revealing that the deepest layers contain artifacts and structural remains dating to the late Harappan period around 3300 BCE, suggesting that human communities had established sophisticated settlements at this strategic coastal location over 5 millennia ago. These earliest inhabitants left behind pottery fragments, bronze tools, and stone foundations that demonstrate their mastery of urban planning principles and maritime technologies that enabled them to thrive in this challenging coastal environment. The second layer, dating to approximately 2500 BCE, reveals evidence of expanded urban development with more sophisticated water management systems, larger stone structures, and artifacts indicating extensive trade relationships with distant civilizations across the Arabian Sea and beyond. The presence of Mesopotamian-style seals, Indus Valley pottery, and locally produced items demonstrates that this ancient Dwarka had already become a cosmopolitan center where diverse cultures met in peaceful commercial and cultural exchange. The third archaeological stratum, tentatively dated to around 2000 BCE, shows evidence of major reconstruction following what appears to have been a catastrophic flooding event, with new architectural techniques and urban planning approaches that suggest the incorporation of lessons learned from previous disasters. The stone blocks from this period display advanced masonry skills and defensive planning that indicates the growing importance of protecting the city against both natural and human threats. The fourth layer reveals the most extensive urban development yet discovered, with evidence of sophisticated harbor installations, residential quarters, and what appear to be religious complexes that align remarkably with descriptions found in ancient Sanskrit texts. Radiocarbon dating places this period around 1500 BCE, coinciding with the traditional time frame associated with Krishna's legendary rule and the golden age of Dwarka described in the Mahabharata and Puranic literature. The fifth archaeological horizon demonstrates continued prosperity and expansion, with evidence of advanced metallurgy, improved agricultural techniques, and the construction of massive defensive walls that extended both along the coastline and into the sea itself. The artifacts from this period include elaborate jewelry, sophisticated tools, and artistic objects that demonstrate the high level of cultural achievement that characterized Dwarka during its classical period of greatest influence and prosperity. The sixth layer shows signs of gradual decline and eventual abandonment, with evidence suggesting that rising sea levels, changing trade patterns, or political instability led to the city's gradual evacuation over several generations. Yet even during this transitional period, the archaeological record demonstrates continued religious activity and cultural continuity that preserved essential connections to the site's sacred significance despite changing material circumstances. The seventh and most recent layer contains evidence of renewed settlement during the early medieval period, when communities returned to rebuild and re-establish urban life at this blessed location, creating the foundations for the contemporary city of Dwarka that continues to serve as one of Hinduism's most important pilgrimage destinations. This final archaeological stratum demonstrates the remarkable resilience and spiritual magnetism that has drawn human communities back to this sacred site across countless generations of change and renewal. The 2025 ASI expeditions have provided crucial new evidence supporting this multi-layered interpretation of Dwarka's archaeological record, with systematic surveys near Gomathi Creek revealing preserved structural remains that clearly demonstrate the complex sequence of construction, abandonment, and rebuilding that characterized the site's long history. Dr. Aparajita Sharma, Ms. Poonam Vind, and Rajkumari Barbina, the pioneering women archaeologists participating in these historic expeditions, have documented underwater features using advanced photography and mapping techniques that enable precise analysis of the relationships between different archaeological layers. The interdisciplinary approach that characterizes contemporary Dwarka research combines underwater archaeology with geological analysis, environmental reconstruction, and textual scholarship to create comprehensive understanding of how human communities adapted to changing coastal conditions across millennia of environmental and cultural evolution. The evidence suggests that each of the 7 cities developed unique solutions to the challenges of coastal living while maintaining essential continuity with the spiritual and cultural traditions that made Dwarka a center of pilgrimage and devotion. The geological context that enabled this remarkable sequence of settlement and renewal includes evidence of multiple sea level fluctuations, seismic activity, and coastal reconfiguration that created alternating periods of favorable and challenging conditions for urban development. The residents of each successive city learned from their predecessors' experiences while adapting their architecture, economy, and social organization to meet the specific requirements of their historical moment and environmental circumstances. The spiritual interpretation of Dwarka's 7 cities resonates deeply with Hindu cosmological concepts of cyclical time and the eternal process of creation, preservation, and dissolution that governs both individual lives and cosmic ages. The 7 cities can be understood as physical manifestations of the 7 lokas or cosmic realms described in ancient texts, with each layer representing different aspects of the eternal spiritual principles that transcend temporary material circumstances. The economic evidence recovered from the various archaeological layers demonstrates how each successive city maintained and expanded the maritime trade relationships that made Dwarka prosperous, with artifacts from distant lands indicating continuous participation in Indian Ocean commerce networks that connected the Indian subcontinent to trading partners from Africa to Southeast Asia. The consistency of this commercial orientation across millennia suggests that Dwarka's strategic location provided advantages that transcended the rise and fall of individual political dynasties or cultural periods. The architectural evolution documented through the 7 layers reveals increasingly sophisticated approaches to coastal construction, water management, and defensive planning that enabled later cities to withstand environmental challenges that had overwhelmed their predecessors. This accumulated wisdom demonstrates how human communities can learn from historical experience while maintaining respect for the spiritual and cultural values that provide meaning and continuity across generations of change. The contemporary significance of the 7 lost cities extends beyond archaeological curiosity to encompass fundamental questions about resilience, adaptation, and the sources of cultural continuity that enable human communities to survive and thrive despite environmental challenges and historical disruptions. The story of Dwarka's multiple rebirths offers inspiration for contemporary communities facing similar challenges related to climate change, urban planning, and the preservation of cultural heritage in rapidly changing environments. As we contemplate the remarkable discovery of 7 cities layered beneath the Arabian Sea, we witness testimony to the eternal human capacity for renewal and the spiritual magnetism that draws communities back to sacred places despite temporary setbacks and material challenges. The patient work of marine archaeologists continues, revealing new evidence of these layered civilizations while demonstrating how scientific investigation can deepen rather than diminish appreciation for the spiritual significance of sacred sites. The gentle currents that flow over these 7 cities carry whispers of countless generations who built, lived, loved, and dreamed at this blessed confluence of river and sea, each contributing their own chapter to the ongoing story of human civilization while participating in the eternal spiritual drama that makes Dwarka simultaneously historical fact and timeless symbol of divine presence in the material world. As the gentle evening prayers echo across the sacred waters near the Dwarkadish temple, we journey tonight into the remarkable harmony that exists between spiritual devotion and scientific inquiry at Dwarka, where millions of pilgrims and dedicated researchers have discovered that faith and archaeology can walk hand in hand toward deeper truth. Let your mind drift peacefully through this unique landscape where ancient mantras blend with the quiet sounds of underwater diving equipment, where temple bells mingle with the careful documentation of marine archaeologists, and where the eternal search for divine connection finds unexpected companionship in the patient pursuit of historical understanding. Close your eyes and feel the serene atmosphere of a place where scientific rigor enhances rather than diminishes spiritual reverence, demonstrating that both devotion and investigation ultimately serve the same sacred purpose of uncovering truth about humanity's relationship with the divine. Picture yourself standing at dawn on the ghats of modern Dwarka, where pilgrims perform their morning ablutions in the same waters that archaeologists explore with diving gear and underwater cameras, both groups united in their reverence for this sacred confluence where the Gomti River meets the Arabian Sea. The morning light illuminates both the ancient temple spires and the research vessels anchored nearby, creating a visual testament to how different approaches to truth-seeking can coexist in mutual respect and shared wonder at the mysteries that surround us. The delicate balance between religious sensitivity and scientific methodology that characterizes contemporary Dwarka research represents one of archaeology's most successful examples of collaborative investigation, where academic scholars and spiritual communities have discovered that their seemingly different approaches actually complement and enrich each other's understanding. The marine archaeologists who conduct underwater excavations approach their work with profound respect for the site's sacred significance, while religious authorities and devotional communities have embraced scientific discoveries as additional confirmation of their cherished traditions and beliefs. Watch as this remarkable partnership unfolds through the patient work of researchers like Professor Alok Tripathi, who leads the Archaeological Survey of India's underwater investigations with deep appreciation for both scientific methodology and spiritual reverence. His team's careful approach to documentation and artifact recovery reflects understanding that they are not merely studying an ancient settlement but exploring the physical remains of a location that continues to serve as one of Hinduism's most important pilgrimage destinations, requiring sensitivity to contemporary religious practices as well as historical accuracy. The 2025 ASI expeditions have demonstrated this harmonious approach through their inclusive methodology, which for the first time in ASI history includes a significant number of women archaeologists, Dr. Aprajita Sharma, Ms. Poonam Vind, and Rajkumari Barbina, whose participation represents both scientific excellence and cultural sensitivity in exploring India's underwater heritage. Their careful documentation using advanced sonar technology, underwater photography, and systematic diving operations proceeds with constant awareness that they are working in waters considered sacred by millions of believers who visit Dwarka seeking spiritual connection and divine blessing. The theological implications of archaeological discoveries at Dwarka have generated fascinating discussions among religious scholars who find in material evidence additional dimensions of understanding, rather than challenges to faith. The discovery of massive stone walls, sophisticated harbor installations, and extensive maritime artifacts has been interpreted by many devotees as confirmation that the scriptural descriptions of Krishna's golden capital contained historical as well as spiritual truth, demonstrating divine power working through human skill and dedication to create something genuinely magnificent. The integration of scientific findings with traditional knowledge has created new opportunities for understanding how ancient communities might have achieved the remarkable urban planning and architectural accomplishments described in sacred texts. The evidence of sophisticated water management systems, advanced masonry techniques, and extensive trade networks provides rational explanations for the prosperity and cultural achievement that religious literature attributes to divine blessing and Krishna's wise governance. The educational value of this collaborative approach extends to both secular and religious institutions, where students and devotees can explore how different forms of knowledge, empirical observation, textual study, oral tradition, and spiritual intuition can work together to create more complete understanding than any single methodology could provide alone. The marine archaeology training programs initiated by the ASI include components that address cultural sensitivity and religious awareness alongside technical diving skills and documentation procedures. The respectful treatment of recovered artifacts demonstrates how scientific preservation can serve devotional purposes, as items brought up from the seafloor receive careful conservation treatment that ensures their long-term survival while making them available for both scholarly study and religious contemplation. The underwater discoveries have been displayed in museums and cultural centers where pilgrims can view physical evidence of their sacred traditions while learning about the scientific methods used to recover and interpret these precious materials. The international recognition that Dwarka has received as both archaeological site and pilgrimage destination reflects growing appreciation for locations where cultural heritage encompasses multiple dimensions of human experience simultaneously. UNESCO's acknowledgement of Dwarka's significance recognizes both its historical importance and its continuing role in contemporary spiritual life, creating frameworks for preservation that honor scientific standards while respecting religious sensitivities. The philosophical discussions that have emerged from Dwarka research address fundamental questions about the relationship between myth and history, between spiritual truth and material evidence, and between ancient wisdom and modern knowledge. Rather than creating conflicts between different worldviews, these conversations have generally enriched understanding by revealing how various approaches to truth-seeking can illuminate different aspects of human experience and cultural development. The environmental consciousness that characterizes both contemporary archaeology and traditional Hindu philosophy has created additional common ground between researchers and religious communities, as both groups recognize the importance of protecting coastal ecosystems and marine environments that support both underwater heritage preservation and ongoing pilgrimage activities. The sustainable tourism initiatives developed around Dwarka demonstrate how economic development can serve both archaeological conservation and religious infrastructure while respecting ecological balance. The technological innovations employed in underwater Dwarka research, including side-scan sonar, multi-beam surveys, and advanced diving equipment, have been welcomed by religious communities as tools that enable deeper appreciation of divine creativity expressed through human accomplishment. The detailed documentation of submerged structures and artifacts provides visual evidence that enhances rather than contradicts traditional accounts of Krishna's extraordinary capital and its remarkable achievements. The interdisciplinary conferences and workshops that bring together archaeologists, historians, theologians, and spiritual leaders demonstrate how academic institutions and religious organizations can collaborate productively in exploring shared interests and common concerns. These gatherings create opportunities for mutual learning that benefits both scientific understanding and spiritual development while building bridges between different communities that might otherwise remain separate. The local community involvement that characterizes Dwarka research includes not only religious authorities and pilgrimage organizations but also fishermen, boat operators, and other residents whose traditional ecological knowledge provides valuable information about marine conditions, seasonal patterns, and historical changes in coastal geography. This inclusive approach recognizes that understanding ancient Dwarka requires drawing upon all available sources of information while respecting the diverse perspectives and contributions of different community members. The conservation challenges that face both underwater archaeological sites and contemporary religious infrastructure have created opportunities for collaborative problem-solving that benefits both preservation goals and devotional activities. The development of protective measures for submerged ruins involves consideration of how these interventions might affect pilgrimage activities, while maintenance of temple facilities and visitor amenities takes into account the need to protect archaeological deposits and research areas. The educational outreach programs developed around Dwarka research include components designed for both general audiences and religious communities, with materials that explain scientific methodologies while honoring spiritual significance and traditional knowledge. These programs demonstrate how public archaeology can serve multiple constituencies simultaneously while maintaining academic integrity and devotional respect. The documentation standards that govern Dwarka investigations reflect both scientific requirements for accurate recording and cultural protocols for appropriate treatment of sacred materials and locations. The careful photography, measurement, and analysis of underwater discoveries proceeds according to international archaeological standards while incorporating traditional blessings and ceremonial acknowledgments that honor the site's continuing religious importance. The future planning for Dwarka research involves consultation with both academic institutions and religious authorities to ensure that ongoing investigations serve the interests of both scientific understanding and spiritual community needs. The development of long-term preservation strategies addresses both archaeological conservation requirements and religious heritage protection goals, creating comprehensive approaches that benefit multiple stakeholder groups. As we contemplate this remarkable harmony between sacred devotion and scientific investigation at Dwarka, we witness a model for how different approaches to truth-seeking can enhance rather than conflict with each other when practiced with mutual respect and shared commitment to understanding. The underwater archaeological discoveries continue revealing physical evidence of ancient achievement, while the ongoing pilgrimage activities demonstrate the enduring spiritual significance that draws contemporary seekers to this blessed confluence of river and sea. The gentle waves that flow over the submerged ruins of Krishna's capital carry both archaeological secrets and devotional prayers, reminding us that some places possess significance that transcends any single perspective or methodology. The harmony between faith and science at Dwarka demonstrates that the most profound truths often emerge when different ways of knowing work together in service of greater understanding and deeper appreciation for the mysteries that surround us. As the gentle morning sun casts its golden rays across the research vessels anchored in the tranquil waters off Dwarka's sacred coast, we journey tonight into the inspiring world of contemporary underwater archaeology, where a new generation of dedicated scientists has taken up the sacred responsibility of protecting and understanding India's submerged cultural heritage. Let your mind drift peacefully through the clear waters of 2025, where advanced diving equipment and cutting-edge technology work in harmony with ancient wisdom, as passionate researchers continue the patient work of revealing truth about Krishna's legendary capital. Close your eyes and feel the quiet determination of these modern guardians who understand that they are not merely studying the past but serving as bridges between ancient achievements and contemporary understanding, ensuring that the treasures beneath the Arabian Sea will continue inspiring future generations with their timeless message of human potential and divine grace. Picture yourself aboard the Archaeological Survey of India research vessel in February 2025, watching as Professor Alok Tripathi, Additional Director General of Archaeology, prepares his dedicated team for the first systematic underwater exploration of Dwarka in over 2 decades, their faces reflecting both scientific excitement and profound reverence for the sacred mysteries they are about to investigate. The salt-scented morning breeze carries whispers of anticipation as advanced sonar equipment and underwater cameras are carefully prepared for deployment, while team members review detailed maps and consultation notes that will guide their explorations near the ancient Gomathi Creek. The revival of the Archaeological Survey of India's Underwater Archaeology Wing in 2025 represents more than simply renewed interest in submerged archaeological sites. It embodies a commitment to preserving India's Rich maritime heritage using the most advanced scientific methods available while maintaining the cultural sensitivity and spiritual reverence that characterizes the best contemporary archaeological practice. Under Professor Tripathi's experienced leadership, this revitalized program has attracted international attention as a model for how underwater cultural heritage can be studied and protected through collaborative approaches that honor both academic rigor and living religious traditions. Watch as this groundbreaking expedition unfolds with unprecedented inclusivity, featuring for the first time in ASI history a significant number of women archaeologists whose participation represents both gender equality and scientific excellence in exploring India's underwater treasures. Dr. Aparajita Sharma, Assistant Superintending Archaeologist of the Underwater Archaeology Wing, Ms. Poonam Vind, Assistant Superintending Archaeologist, and Rajkumari Barbina, Assistant Archaeologist, have brought specialized expertise and fresh perspectives to underwater investigations that benefit from diverse viewpoints and collaborative approaches to complex research challenges. The careful selection of the research area near Gomathi Creek reflects sophisticated understanding of both archaeological potential and environmental conditions that enable safe and productive underwater work, as the team has identified locations where previous surveys suggested the presence of submerged structures while ensuring that diving operations can proceed safely in the sometimes challenging conditions of the Arabian Sea. The systematic approach to site selection demonstrates how contemporary underwater archaeology combines traditional archaeological methodology with marine engineering expertise and environmental science. The technological innovations employed in the 2025 expeditions include advanced sonar mapping systems that create detailed three-dimensional images of the seafloor, underwater photography equipment that captures high-resolution images in challenging marine conditions, and specialized diving apparatus that enables archaeologists to work safely at depths where ancient structures await documentation and analysis. These modern tools represent quantum leaps beyond the equipment available to pioneering researchers like Dr. S.R. Rao during the 1980s, enabling more precise measurement, comprehensive documentation, and safer working conditions for underwater archaeological teams. The interdisciplinary nature of contemporary Dwarka research brings together expertise from marine archaeology, underwater photography, geological survey, oceanographic research, environmental science, and digital documentation, creating collaborative frameworks that enable comprehensive understanding of both the archaeological discoveries and the environmental contexts that have preserved or altered these ancient remains across millennia. The integration of multiple scientific disciplines ensures that findings are interpreted within broader frameworks of historical, cultural, and environmental understanding. The training programs that accompany the 2025 expeditions represent investments in future underwater archaeological capacity, as Professor Tripathi and his colleagues work to develop the next generation of marine archaeologists who will continue protecting and studying India's submerged cultural heritage. The 9 archaeologists selected from different parts of the country to participate in ongoing investigations are receiving specialized training in underwater documentation techniques, diving safety protocols, and artifact conservation procedures that will enable them to conduct future research at Dwarka and other underwater archaeological sites throughout India. The systematic documentation procedures employed by the contemporary team establish new standards for underwater archaeological work. In Indian waters, with comprehensive photographic records, precise GPS mapping, detailed written descriptions, and digital archives that create permanent resources for future researchers while ensuring that discoveries are preserved even if changing environmental conditions make them inaccessible to future investigations. The careful attention to documentation reflects understanding that underwater archaeological sites face unique preservation challenges that require immediate and thorough recording. The collaborative relationships that characterize the 2025 expeditions include partnerships with the Indian Navy, which provides specialized diving support and marine expertise, as well as consultation with local religious authorities and community leaders who ensure that research activities proceed with appropriate respect for the site's continuing spiritual significance. These collaborative approaches demonstrate how contemporary archaeology can serve multiple constituencies simultaneously while maintaining professional standards and cultural sensitivity. The initial findings from the renewed investigations have already provided valuable confirmation of earlier discoveries while revealing new details about the extent and organization of submerged structures near the Gomathi Creek area. The team's systematic surveys have documented preserved architectural remains, additional artifact concentrations, and environmental features that provide important context for understanding how ancient coastal settlements adapted to changing sea levels and marine conditions across different historical periods. The conservation challenges addressed by the contemporary team include not only the preservation of artifacts recovered from marine environments but also the protection of underwater archaeological sites from various threats including coastal development, marine pollution, industrial activities, and climate change effects that could compromise the integrity of submerged cultural heritage. The development of comprehensive site management plans ensures that protective measures address both immediate threats and long-term preservation requirements. The public engagement initiatives that accompany the 2025 expeditions include educational programs designed to inform both local communities and international audiences about the significance of underwater archaeological discoveries while building support for heritage preservation efforts. The careful balance between scientific research and public accessibility demonstrates how contemporary archaeology can serve educational purposes while maintaining the professional standards necessary for credible research and responsible heritage management. The international recognition that India's renewed underwater archaeological program has received reflects growing appreciation for the ASI's leadership in marine heritage preservation and the global significance of discoveries being made in Indian waters. The methodological innovations developed during Dwarka investigations provide models for underwater archaeological work at other sites throughout the Indian Ocean region while contributing to international discussions about best practices for submerged cultural heritage management. The funding allocation of 10 rupees lakhs initially provided for the current fieldwork demonstrates governmental commitment to supporting underwater archaeological research while indicating the substantial resources required for safe and effective marine archaeology operations. The careful budget management ensures that available funds support both immediate research activities and the development of long-term capacity for ongoing underwater heritage preservation efforts. The phased approach to the renewed investigations enables researchers to build systematically upon initial discoveries while expanding the scope of exploration based on findings from earlier phases of work. This methodical strategy ensures that research proceeds efficiently while maintaining flexibility to pursue unexpected discoveries and adapt to changing environmental conditions that characterize marine archaeological environments. The advanced mapping techniques employed during the 2025 expeditions create detailed bathymetric surveys that document both natural features and artificial structures on the seafloor, providing essential baseline data for understanding the relationships between archaeological deposits and environmental conditions that have influenced preservation and accessibility of submerged cultural heritage across different historical periods. The integration of remote sensing technologies with traditional archaeological methods enables researchers to identify potential investigation areas before committing diving resources to underwater exploration, while digital documentation systems ensure that all discoveries are recorded in formats that enable sharing with international research communities and long-term preservation for future analysis. As we contemplate the remarkable achievements of these contemporary guardians of Dwarka's underwater heritage, we witness the continuation of a scientific tradition that spans nearly a century of archaeological investigation while incorporating the most advanced technologies and collaborative approaches available to modern researchers. Their patient work demonstrates how each generation of scholars builds upon the discoveries of their predecessors while contributing new insights and methodological innovations that advance human understanding of our shared cultural heritage. The gentle waves that flow over the submerged ruins of Krishna's capital continue protecting these ancient treasures while supporting the work of dedicated researchers who understand that they serve as temporary custodians of discoveries that belong not to any single generation but to all humanity. Their commitment to scientific excellence combined with cultural reverence ensures that the underwater archaeological investigation of Dwarka will continue revealing truth about ancient achievements while inspiring contemporary audiences with evidence of human wisdom, creativity, and spiritual insight that transcends the boundaries of time and tradition. As the gentle evening stars begin their eternal watch over the sacred waters where the Gomti River flows peacefully into the vast Arabian Sea, we arrive tonight at the serene conclusion of our journey through the submerged mysteries of Dwarka, where the patient work of underwater archaeologists continues revealing glimpses of Krishna's legendary capital while preserving the deeper mystery that ensures this blessed site will forever inspire wonder, devotion, and scientific curiosity. Let your mind drift peacefully through the moonlit depths where countless secrets still await discovery, where each wave that kisses the sacred shore carries whispers of ancient wisdom that transcends the boundaries between legend and history, between spiritual truth and archaeological evidence. Close your eyes and feel the eternal presence of the golden city that sleeps beneath these tranquil waters, reminding us that some mysteries are meant to unfold gradually across generations, revealing their treasures only to those who approach with patience, reverence, and unwavering commitment to truth. Picture yourself floating in the gentle currents above the submerged ruins of Suvarna Dwarka, where shafts of golden sunlight penetrate the crystal-clear water to illuminate stone foundations, carved pillars, and scattered artifacts that represent merely the visible portion of a vast underwater archaeological landscape that extends far beyond the areas explored by contemporary research expeditions. The morning light reveals tantalizing glimpses of additional structures, partially buried walls, and mysterious formations that suggest the true extent of Krishna's ancient capital remains largely unknown, waiting patiently for future generations of marine archaeologists to continue the sacred work of revelation and understanding. The remarkable achievements of underwater archaeological investigations at Dwarka across nearly half a century of systematic research have established beyond doubt that substantial urban settlements once flourished at this strategic coastal location. Yet these discoveries simultaneously demonstrate how much remains unknown about the full scope, organization, and cultural achievements of the civilizations that created these submerged treasures. Each expedition has answered important questions while revealing new mysteries that expand rather than limit our appreciation for the complexity and sophistication of ancient Indian maritime civilization. Watch as the accumulated evidence from 7 distinct archaeological layers tells the story of human resilience and spiritual continuity across millennia of environmental change and cultural evolution, while simultaneously highlighting the vast areas of the seafloor that remain unexplored due to limitations of time, resources, and technology. The systematic surveys conducted during the 2025 ASI expeditions under Professor Alok Tripathi's leadership have mapped only small portions of the potentially significant archaeological areas, suggesting that decades of future research will be required to fully understand the underwater heritage preserved beneath the Arabian Sea. The technological advances that have revolutionized underwater archaeological investigation during recent decades, from advanced sonar mapping to sophisticated diving equipment to digital documentation systems, have dramatically expanded researchers' ability to locate, document, and interpret submerged archaeological sites. Yet these same innovations reveal the existence of additional features and artifacts that previous generations of researchers could not detect. Each technological breakthrough simultaneously solves existing puzzles and identifies new questions that require investigation using even more advanced methods and approaches. The integration of scientific methodology with spiritual reverence that characterizes contemporary Dwarka research demonstrates how different approaches to understanding can work together harmoniously when guided by shared commitment to truth and mutual respect for diverse perspectives and cultural values. The collaboration between marine archaeologists and religious communities has created models for heritage research that honor both academic standards and devotional sensitivities while contributing to broader human understanding of our shared cultural heritage and spiritual traditions. The evidence of sophisticated urban planning, advanced maritime technology, and extensive trade relationships that has emerged from underwater investigations provides compelling confirmation that ancient Indian coastal civilizations possessed capabilities and achievements that align remarkably with descriptions found in sacred texts and oral traditions. Yet these material discoveries also reveal aspects of ancient life and culture that are not addressed in traditional sources, creating opportunities for expanded understanding that enriches rather than contradicts existing knowledge and beliefs. The environmental context that has preserved Dwarka's underwater archaeological heritage across millennia includes complex interactions between sea level changes, tectonic activity, sedimentation patterns, and marine ecosystems that continue evolving in response to both natural processes and human activities. The careful balance required to protect submerged archaeological sites while enabling appropriate research access demonstrates how heritage preservation must consider both immediate threats and long-term environmental changes that could affect site integrity and accessibility. The international significance of Dwarka's underwater discoveries extends far beyond regional archaeological interest to encompass fundamental questions about ancient maritime civilizations, the historical foundations of religious traditions, and the processes through which coastal communities adapted to changing environmental conditions across vast periods of time. The methodological innovations developed during Dwarka investigations continue influencing underwater archaeological practice throughout the Indian Ocean region and beyond, establishing India as a leader in marine heritage research and preservation. The educational value of ongoing Dwarka research includes not only academic contributions to archaeological and historical knowledge but also public engagement opportunities that enable diverse audiences to appreciate the relationship between scientific investigation and cultural heritage while understanding how contemporary research builds upon the achievements of previous generations of scholars. The careful documentation and preservation of discoveries ensures that current findings will provide foundations for future researchers who will possess even more advanced tools and techniques. The conservation challenges that face underwater archaeological sites require long-term planning and resource allocation that transcends individual research projects or institutional programs, encompassing comprehensive approaches to site protection, artifact preservation, and environmental monitoring that address both current conditions and anticipated changes in marine environments, coastal development patterns, and heritage management priorities. The success of conservation efforts depends upon continued collaboration between governmental agencies, academic institutions, and local communities whose support is essential for effective heritage protection. The spiritual dimensions of Dwarka's ongoing mystery reflect the site's continuing role as one of Hinduism's most important pilgrimage destinations, where millions of devotees annually experience profound connections to Krishna's presence while contemporary researchers work quietly beneath the same waters to reveal physical evidence of ancient achievements. This remarkable coexistence of devotional practice and scientific investigation demonstrates how different forms of human inquiry can enhance rather than conflict with each other when approached with appropriate reverence and mutual respect. The future prospects for Dwarka research include not only continued underwater archaeological investigation using increasingly sophisticated technologies but also interdisciplinary studies that integrate archaeological findings with research in marine geology, environmental science, climate studies, and digital heritage preservation. The development of new research methodologies and technological applications will enable future investigators to address questions that current techniques cannot fully resolve while preserving discoveries for analysis by scholars who have not yet been born. The philosophical implications of Dwarka's underwater mysteries encompass eternal questions about the relationship between material evidence and spiritual truth, between historical fact and religious faith, and between scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom that continue inspiring thoughtful people regardless of their particular backgrounds or beliefs. The site serves as a bridge between different forms of understanding while demonstrating that the deepest truths often transcend any single perspective or methodology. The global context of underwater archaeological heritage preservation includes recognition that submerged cultural sites face unique threats from climate change, coastal development, marine pollution, and other factors that require international cooperation and coordinated response strategies. Dwarka's role as a model for successful underwater heritage management contributes to broader discussions about how humanity can protect and study our shared archaeological legacy while addressing contemporary environmental and social challenges. As we contemplate the eternal mystery of what still lies beneath the waves off Dwarka's sacred coast, we recognize that some questions are meant to unfold gradually across generations of patient investigation, revealing their secrets only to those who approach with appropriate reverence, scientific rigor, and genuine commitment to understanding rather than mere curiosity or academic advancement. The submerged city continues teaching lessons about humility, persistence, and the eternal human quest for truth that connects contemporary researchers to countless generations of seekers who have found in this blessed location inspiration for their own spiritual and intellectual journeys. The gentle waves that flow eternally over Krishna's submerged capital carry continuing invitations to wonder, to investigate, and to appreciate both the achievements of our ancestors and the limitations of our current understanding. Each tide that washes against the sacred shores brings new possibilities for discovery while reminding us that the greatest treasures often lie just beyond the reach of our present capabilities, waiting patiently for those who possess the dedication and wisdom necessary to uncover them through patient work guided by reverence for truth and respect for mystery. The underwater archaeological investigation of Dwarka will continue for generations, with each phase of research contributing new pieces to an ever-expanding puzzle that grows more fascinating rather than more complete with each discovery. Future archaeologists will possess tools and techniques that we cannot yet imagine, enabling them to explore areas of the seafloor that remain inaccessible to contemporary investigators while addressing questions that current research can only formulate but not fully answer.